Good evening, everyone. We're in the Public Arts Select Committee, Wednesday, April 5th. I'm going to try to start doing this in the Coast Salish language. Hathan swallowing quis flechtama squiomish oiomo, which means welcome to the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. Motion to adopt the agenda. We're going to rearrange the agenda a little bit and do everything before the motion to close, but besides that, the agenda is as in front of the committee. Mover. Moved by Catherine, seconded by Doug. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Give the minutes from the Select Committee of March 8th for approval. Moved by Doug, thank you. Seconded by Toby. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Any questions from people who weren't at the last meeting? Don't see any. I'm wondering if maybe we'll just jump right down to our guest who we have here. Might as well, if that's all right with everyone, we'll maybe invite Meg to join us and we can talk about the mosaic right off the bat. That's all right?
Sure. Do you want me to say a few things?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Meg,
Just in case Meg wants to skedaddle. I know she's familiar with these chambers, but
out of here. Yeah.
she may not.
So, for those of you who don't know Meg Fellows, she was on council and was very much involved in the creation of the mosaic across the street at Stanley Park when it happened, and we got to talking at the end of last week, and I mentioned it, and or actually no, you mentioned it, and she followed what the chief's story and that, and so definitely has a great deal of personal knowledge and remembrances of how important it was at the time. And then I don't know, should I talk about my part B?
Well, why don't we introduce Meg, and maybe
Yeah.
she can just tell us the genesis. I mean, I was kind of around on the periphery of this, but I remember it was a huge project. It was an expensive project. It was a big project, and maybe you can just give us some context, because we're trying to figure out a way or how we're going to rehabilitate this.
Go forward
Yeah.
with that, yeah. The project was basically a...
Hey Meg, do you want us to go around the table quickly so you know everybody? Or
Sure, that'd be great.
Sure, why don't we start with Sarah?
Sure. Hi, Sarah McCann, our community planner in the district. Carrie Hamilton, also a planner here at the district. Nice to meet you. Devin Guest, film and events.
Adrian Blahu, owner of Zephyr and representing BIA. Andy Nismaf, a local artist here in town.
And I'm Fran.
I do.
Doug French.
Toby Jackson.
Catherine Atkinson. Thanks.
I'm Meg Fellows, by the way. My current project is the Turtle Trail kind of thing, so I thought I'd give a little plug for that right at the moment. And it's got sidetracked a little bit into accessibility issues, which I find quite interesting. Things always open up in different directions. The Mosaic project was driven by the youth of the community. One of Corrine Lonsdale's projects was the youth center, was getting that up and running. So it had just been put together and inaugurated. And we had two youth workers at the time, Christy and Mark. And they wanted to see if there was a project, an art project that we could put together that we could couple up the youth of the community with the community and introduce one to the other, because so often the kids are in the school and don't necessarily connect and know what's what in the community kind of thing. So the youth center did the fundraising, and got the money from different government grants and that kind of thing. They were the ones who were involved in all the hiring decisions of the kids, and Heather Royal, who was the artist in residence. What I was really excited about with the kids was that there was a mixture of kids, at-risk kids, and other kids kind of thing amongst the 15. So this was a real opportunity for them to work together outside their peer groups. And also it was a wonderful opportunity because I was council at the time, and so we could bring it right into chambers. And so with that group together, it was quite exciting to figure out who amongst the various nonprofit organizations in town, what were they interested in, how did we access them, who are the business people who are in town who would be interested in supporting the issue, the Mosaic project. So it was quite an elaborate mixture, and we went around to various community groups, fundraising, also getting donations, and I think Ted Pryor donated a whole bunch of stuff, which is what he kind of does as a regular kind of thing, and he's on council right now. The project started, I'm going to say May or June, and then the hiring with the kids was probably July, August, September, October, and we had to actually put tarps all over the mosaic during the autumn rains kind of thing. It was really quite interesting. We were working across from the municipal hall, so there's all kinds of people coming and going, a lot of chatting. So it was really quite a community buy-in to the project. And if you've had a chance to look at it, the actual rainbow, the blue on the outside is actually the nonprofit organizations. The next layer in is green, and that's various individuals who just wanted to contribute and be part of it. The yellow is municipal government, and I can remember Kim Annam at that point was in the finance department. He says, money makes the world go round. We want to have 5 tiles. Well, there's other departments as well, Kim, and the money is important, but it's only one of the things. So it was extremely interesting, the byplay. Not only, and mainly the young people actually learning, again, the community and getting to know some of the people on council, getting to know the staff, and vice versa as well. So there was a big celebration, a couple of celebrations when we finally finished it. And I think it stood up, quite well. And it's like 20 years ago that it was actually put in place. So it meant quite a lot at the time of networking, of using, the arts community, building the kids, using the youth center as well. So that's just a little bit of background of that particular piece. So.
And certainly from my observation, and I think Catherine could concur, it seemed to weather quite well until this year. I mean, there's been some erosion and some general scuffing and stuff, but it really was this winter it took a beating.
Meg also felt that maybe some of the pieces were vandalized at certain points too.
The one piece that I was curious, and this is a number of years ago that I noticed it was the Sikh temple, and some of the faces there had been shipped out. And again, it looked a little bit deliberate. It looked like it might have been vandals, I don't know. One of the things that I believe, and when we worked on the Eagle Watch project, is if you get kids involved, then sometimes the networks just mean that there's less vandalism around for certain kind of installations and that kind of thing. So I think it's really worthwhile, even though it takes some time and energy, to actually build those partnerships and build those relationships between the communities. And really that's what that rainbow represents, to me. So yes, some of it was vandalized, I think, a little bit, but the quality in different places is different as well, and some of the firing of some of the tiles meant that they didn't stand up quite as well. So there's a variety of techniques and quality as well, which is kind of representative of the community as well. So it's kind of neat.
How long did it take? Like once they started to actually put it on the ground, and do you remember, was it put on a big huge slab?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So the slab was poured first,
The slab
and then it was
was
taken.
And I think there was actually gravel put underneath it, and what I can't remember, I'm thinking, and I may be wrong, but I think there was actually rebar put in it as well, so it was reinforced. So it was actually the sidewalk portion of it was built to, I think, pretty good standards,
Mm-hmm.
and then the mosaic was put on top of that. And I think it was built in several slabs. I think that's why you've actually got a line going through it, because I think there was several, but there's some faulty memory here too.
Would you say, would Heather Royal be the best person to sort of know the nitty-gritty of it, or?
Yeah. Yeah, very definitely. And she's still in town
Yeah.
as well. So.
Any questions for Meg? How many kids do you think actually worked on it? And
Well,
there
I
were
mean,
some
there
that
were
were,
15 that were employed.
15 were employed, eh?
Yeah. But I think there was more people, as I say, working over there. It was really interesting because I got my hands dirty too. And you had a lot of people, just community people coming by and talking and chit-chatting with the kids and offering help or just trying to find out what was going on and where were they going. And some of the kids went to New York and fashion design, and some of them went to over to Nanaimo. And yeah, so it was really quite an interesting, because it was over that length of time, you know, there was an opportunity of really getting to know people. And of course, Heather's role was not only kind of artist in residence, but she was also mentoring the kids and exploring how do you interview people. You know, how do you actually go in and say, okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about what you do. How can we reflect that in the mosaic tile and the design? So that was really a collaborative kind of process for them. And there was all kinds of team building stuff, and just kind of like, if you're committing to this project, you got to be here on time. So a lot of those life skills and things were involved as well in that project. It was really pretty amazing, and it was a good celebration.
Yeah. And it was a $100,000 budget? Was that what you got from West, what was got, you don't remember that?
For me, I don't know,
Testing
because
room.
I don't think it was actually, most of that money came from outside. I don't think it was the municipality.
Well, I think it was Western Diversification or something like
I
that.
think there was
It's in that
two
story.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was two, you know, but honestly, I just don't know, because the kids were doing that through the youth center.
Interesting. Any other questions for Meg? Catherine, do you want to follow up with your stuff?
Sure, yeah. So I was asked last time, or I offered last time, I can't remember, to look into what restorers are out there and try and get a sense of what the process is when you're engaging professionals who do this, who fix these sorts of things. And, you know, because I know how to fix things in a small way, and I haven't fixed a large project, but, you know, listening about the construction and the substrate underneath it, that makes total sense to how I understand these things need to be built. So the only ongoing dialogue I had was with a company in Vancouver that I thought, and they don't do it, they make their own mosaics, they're kind of more of a commercial venture, and probably for stores and other places like that, rather than artistic. And they don't do it, and they don't know anyone else who does it in the region. I found one place in the eastern US, and they do monumental scale projects, like churches and public buildings and, you know, whole sides of buildings, and they do restoration as well. And I hadn't reached out to them yet. I just kind of ran out of time in the past month. But they're out there, they're just not around here. And I suspect they're not cheap. I think that it's possible to pull together, just like in the construction of it, knowledgeable people to sort of make it work. But again, decisions have to be made about that.
It's interesting. I mean, mosaics are huge all over the world. They're not, North America doesn't, just down in Mexico, they're everywhere.
You Google
Around.
mosaic restorers in English as opposed to Italian, say, and you find them on, there's tons in the UK.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, well, I mean.
It might be worth,
Yeah, go ahead.
it might be worth trying to find somebody local, whoever does it, because you're probably gonna need to touch it up in another 5 years or 3 years or 5, you know, and so rather than train someone up for.
Oh, for sure. I think that's not a bad thing. I know that if it goes out to tender, I'll certainly throw my hat into the ring. Maybe some kind of partnership with somebody who's a tiler on a day-to-day basis. But
And maybe not, maybe you won't have to fix it. But who knows, right? A little
but
ideas
yeah,
crop up.
I think probably, my feeling is an assessment of the extent of the damage. I mean, you might end up taking sections out, and then you won't even know until you do that exactly how bad it is or how good it is. And then really a decision about how you want that mosaic to be used, whether you want it to still be part of a public path, or whether you want to remove it or move the path. Do you know what I mean? I just, my feeling about it as being part of a public path is that it's made up of so many little pieces, and that is what, that's the weak section of it. That's the weak part of it that over time with the weather and everything else will get damaged again. They will come loose again. So I guess it's a question of priorities and costs.
I mean, I love the idea of engaging the youth again, and
Yeah.
you know, it might be too late, but with the 150th year and 20 years later, that there might be an ability to be able to hire 10 or 15 kids in the summer to
Yeah.
do this kind of work. It would be an interesting, really cool project to do, and even maybe add on to it. You know.
Certainly the original idea that we talked about was, yes, it would be a footpath, whether that was a wise choice or not, I don't know. And what the district has done in terms of the concrete, we actually were fantasizing about, let's have some stepping stones going through the park kind of thing as clouds, you know, and build on it. So it would be an interesting, as you say, whether it's doable or not, I don't know.
I might just make some phone calls to see if there's any pots of money out there that we could tap into for
Yeah.
this.
What I'm getting a sense of in terms of artistic projects up and down the corridor is that a lot of people have started late, and there are things that are, say, starting at the end of this year to celebrate 150th
Yeah.
and going on into 2018. And yeah, the Audain is doing something like that, for example, and other places. So it doesn't have to be right on July 1st.
Yeah. Well, there won't be.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions? Awesome. Why don't we move on to the OCP presentation from Sarah? Thanks, Megan. You're welcome to stay.
I'll stay for a few
Because we're a
minutes.
fabulous group. You're welcome to sit at the table. We're very inclusive.
And you can run next time, too.
She's wiser than that.
Thanks so much, Mayor Heinzman. My name is Sarah McJanet. I know some of you and others I haven't met yet, but I'm a community planner with the district, and I've been working on the OCP, the official community plan update, and the official community plan is sort of the community's highest level plan and guide for everything from land use to transportation, housing, parks, natural areas protection, sort of it's very broad, and it's used it's used by many. So district staff, council use it and refer to it in terms of decision making around budget and all the rest. And then community organizations use it, landowners and developers refer to it as well. So it's something that we need to update every 5 years. We started earlier, in the beginning of 2016. Our current plan, this is very much a big undertaking, and because Squamish is growing quickly and shifting in terms of demographics and opportunities, that we realized very quickly that this was going to be a wholesale rewrite of the plan. We're in phase 3 right now, so just to walk you through the overall process so that you know kind of where we're at. In phase 1, we started with visioning and setting directions. So we had a big public visioning session at the West Coast Railway Museum. I don't know if some of you were able to join us for that. And then so that was the kickoff.
It was over 400 people at that.
Yeah, it was really well
attended.
attended. We were pleased. We did an online survey. We did a World Cafe with the youth at Housetown Secondary, a drop-in session at Torm Hall, and a bunch of, and the online survey, I should say. And that was really the start to get everybody's input in terms of where they see Squamish in 2040 in the future and what are the top priorities. And then moving into the spring in phase 2, we were doing a bunch of direction setting. So we developed policy discussion guides, and then invited the community to host OC pizza party discussion, like kitchen table conversations, and paid for those, and I'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. And in phase 3, what we've been doing is taking all the inputs that we've received from the community to date, as well as inputs from intergovernmental and agency review on the plan, and we're preparing a discussion draft to come back to the community. And we'll be doing a lot more engagement with that discussion draft. So another big public event, we're going to be doing an online survey We will also do another drop-in session at Totem Hall, and then I'm going to be doing a lot of pop-up engagement around the town, so I'll be riding the bus at the schools, in the parks, at the community center, and bringing the plan out. And one of the things that we're doing with the plan is creating a executive summary that's going to be really easy to read so that people can get engaged. And so I'm here today to keep you plugged into the process. I met with the Squamish Arts Council board 3 weeks ago and did a similar presentation, and just want to invite you and encourage you to stay with us, and we really value your feedback as we continue on in this process. So I'm going to give you a bit of a sneak peek today too of some of the public art policies that we're embedding in the plan. So just really briefly, some of the big priorities that we heard from the community so far. I mentioned managing growth, that's a huge one. The affordable housing crisis was big. Preserving employment, preserving really good employment opportunity, or generating better employment opportunity to strengthen the economy, and finding that great balance between jobs and housing. Transportation continues to be a huge priority. Also active transportation and making sure our neighborhoods and everywhere in the community are connected. Natural areas protection, how we're going to deal with growth, with how that impacts our trails and our natural assets. Food, neighborhood access, and then also a priority and focus around healthy communities. So how well are we caring for all of our citizens from 8 months to 80 years old, basically. So what we did in phase 2, I mentioned those pizza party discussion guides. We created 3 guides. One was around topics focused on the growing Squamish, a resilient Squamish, and the thriving Squamish. And so we put these out to the community and posed a bunch of questions and offered some directions that we were headed based on what we were hearing. And we got a fairly good response to the pizza parties. The topic of arts, culture, and heritage we embedded in the discussion guide around thriving Squamish. And that also included economic development, housing, education, learning, and healthy neighborhoods. This shows the response on the different topics in the guide. So arts, culture, and heritage was kind of middle of the road. We received the most comments around recreation, access, land use, built environment, growth, natural environment, housing, childcare, those things, and the least on hazard planning. So, oh well. So that's
Until
yes, exactly. So anyway, that's where people's kind of energy.
Right ahead of economic development.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to share some of the arts, culture, and heritage policy directions. Did anyone here engage with those discussion guides? Did you take part in them at all, or?
The survey.
The survey. Yeah, okay. So what we did is we put forward, all these discussion guides were focused around these different topics. And so for arts, culture, heritage, we put forward a bunch of ideas and directions, and then asked people to tell us whether they supported or didn't support those directions. So we clustered a bunch of kind of policy directions around creating a creative, focusing around creative community. So that identified things like developing an arts, culture, and heritage strategy, and cultivating partnerships, enhancing public art, expanding and integrating arts, culture, and heritage better within the community, within the municipal government, supporting First Nations culture and heritage in line with our goals around reconciliation. And then also reinforcing downtown as the arts and culture center for the community. That's definitely part of our current plan, but I just wanted to highlight too that we recognize that that's definitely one objective, but we recognize that strengthening arts and culture throughout all of our neighborhoods is equally important. So in terms of the level of support, you can see, although it's hard to see the color, green is the darkest green is strongly support. So across the board, across all these directions, people were very supportive of those directions overall that participated in reviewing these discussion guides. I just want to highlight.
Can I go back to that?
Oh, yeah,
I have
for
to
sure.
ask the question.
Yeah,
Who's opposed to an inclusive community?
I know. Somebody that's super grumpy.
What's that?
Somebody that's really grumpy. I don't know. Or feeling disadvantaged.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. That was oh yeah, it was opposed too. It's orange.
5 people are orange.
Yeah, it's, and I guess too, they were asked to comment on these in concert with like all of these others. So, but anyway, yeah, we're kind of going through all the comments still and picking out all these little things to try and figure things out. But anyway,
Sorry.
So
Shake my head.
this is just to show that the official community plan, there are so many inputs that it's like a tapestry. We're trying to like weave all this stuff together, and that's why it's been taking us a while. But I've got like, my brain is hemorrhaging. There's so many plans and strategies and things that we're weaving together. So I mentioned like our sensitive areas mapping, flood hazard management plan, downtown neighborhood stuff, employment lands. We've got a food charter, a children's charter, Parks and Rec plan, all these things. And then on the arts front, I just wanted to highlight some of the things that have been informing the discussion draft of the OCP include our public arts policy, so embedding that in our planning. The Arts Council shared their arts development plan, surveys that were done through SAC, different sort of research, and also looking at how other communities are developing arts and culture strategies and plans. So all these things are coming together, and we hope and are confident that we're going to have a really great plan. So we're excited to bring it forward. So this is to give you a bit of a sneak peek. We're organizing the plan around, this says 4 big goals, but there's actually 5.
Yes.
Oh my
Looking at
gosh.
that going.
I missed one. Anyway, so these are kind of cross-cutting goals for the entire plan, and it's amazing how like these kind of emerged from the discussion that we had with the community, but they really, and I'll explain a little bit in a moment, but they really do seem to cut across all the topic areas. So they include Squamish being resilient, healthy, connected, engaged, and livable. And so we've tried to flesh this out in the draft plan. And in terms of arts and culture, it really it filters in a bunch of interesting different ways in the goals. But when we think about healthy community, we're thinking really like holistically about health. And so we're talking about physical, mental, social health, and well-being, spiritual, and part of being part of a thriving community is really around artistic and political expression and all those ideas. So
And
that's
inclusivity.
and interestingly, I know the Arts Council in their development plan, they had started to bring to the fore all this research around how involvement in the arts is actually a predictor of, like especially in children, it's a predictor of good things like later in life, like people that are involved in the arts
Success
are like
and
more
stability.
connected and healthier and happier and all those good things. So we're really trying to bring that element into the plan, and then also just around engagement and livable and connected and just all around trying to be a really fun, awesome community. So those are the 5 big plan goals that we're framing the plan around. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a teaser around some of in the arts, culture, and heritage portion of the OCP, some of the key objectives that we have started to frame up, and these are super draft. I didn't bring that excerpt today, but what we'll be doing is forwarding the discussion draft to all of our council committees and out to the community, so you can formally respond to the draft when it goes out. But just to give you a bit of a preview, we've tried to highlight some different objectives around creative community. So supporting and nurturing a vibrant creative sector, improving access to and participation in the arts, reinforcing, as I said, the Arts and Culture Center within the downtown, objectives around really investing in the community's cultural development. There's a focus also around Aboriginal culture and heritage conservation. I just wanted to highlight too that before I get into the public art policies specifically, some of the kind of more nuanced policy that we're trying to craft is really around working with the art, working more closely with the art sector and local artists to expand creative industries. We know that art space in the community is a huge need that we've heard through the feedback and from SAC surveys as well. So how can we better create not only like increase participation, but also support participation through better arts infrastructure and whatnot. This has been hanging out there for a long time, and it's in Council's strategic plan, is just around the arts, culture, and heritage strategy. And I don't have the history here to know about that conversation and that it's sort of been sitting but hasn't really been actioned. I don't know, Patty, if you have anything more to say about that, but we're keeping it in the OCP, and
Yeah.
I think it's just it seems like it's been hanging out there for a long time. But
It's been in Council strategic plan from the beginning of this term, and it is one of those pieces that slowly, I mean, I think this committee is one fundamental piece of it, and it's slowly integrating, but we haven't been really purposeful in how we've moved it forward. Council's going to do a little strategic revision in the next month to sort of make sure the strategic vision is up to date and to make sure we're actioning all the things we're trying to action within it. And there's always compromise here and there, but it's certainly a goal, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing how it's going to create that foundational layer within the OCP so it starts to just become part of the
and
vernacular. Right?
prioritize. Yeah. I mean, certainly when I spoke with the board at the Arts Council, what I was hearing around that table was just sort of continued, just concern that that the arts, like arts and culture, is just not as supported and as some of the other assets in the community, perhaps like trails and things, and that there was a concern that like arts people were like leaving Squamish because it didn't seem like a really artful like place. But I think that that's definitely not where we want to go. We want to do the opposite. So whoops, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so this is actually, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of 2 slides of public art policies. And the intention today is just to sort of give you a little bit of a preview. It's like a sniff test kind of, and then we can make a little bit of time maybe for just a little bit of feedback on these, and then when we refer the discussion draft out there, I can come back and then we can chew on all this stuff together. But essentially what we've crafted so far is for public art, at least under the purview of this committee, the objective being to enhance public art and opportunities for creative thinking and expression throughout the community. So how we frame this so far, and this is totally work in progress, recognize public art and arts infrastructure as a community amenity, encourage its incorporation in public and private sector development projects, administer public art contributions through the district's public art policy and program. Secondly, program and integrate arts and arts infrastructure into public settings and facilities throughout the community, including municipal buildings, parks, recreation, plazas, and trails, as well as in capital projects and public infrastructure. Annually contribute to the Public Art Fund and ensure sufficient funding is allowed for new capital and development projects. Continue to work with the Public Art Select Committee on public art priorities and to select, commission, install, and maintain art in public places. So this kind of stuff was taken actually right out of the policy. So we have a standalone public art policy, but we wanted to bring it up into the community plan so that it was.
And I know we've had this conversation before, but words like encourage and, you know, I'd like them to be stronger and more
Yeah.
definitive. Like embed public art in public spaces and in new developments. Like,
Yeah.
there's no,
Give lots of
please,
babies.
you know, be nice to us and put a sculpture in. I
Yeah.
think we want to be really clear about this is,
For sure.
we want to embed this in our developments.
Yeah, definitely.
That's just me and the wishy-washy language we end up with in policies, and I'd rather be a little more stronger. That's just,
And then on the second slide, I have include arts and culture in all aspects of municipal activity, policy, and planning and development. Explore and utilize artistic processes and activities to engage citizens, especially youth, in community development and arts interventions. Encourage developers, nonprofit agencies, and individuals to create a variety of art forms on streets and in public places, and promote and support artists and residents, as well as local networks of volunteers and art supporters to work on exhibitions, festivals, and community cultural projects. This needs work.
no,
But anyway, it's a start. I will leave these policies with you, but certainly we're coming close to kind of putting this out there to the community, so we really would like to engage. But your preview is really important too, so if you can, even around the table, if you can sort of sit with this for a little bit and then want to fire off any feedback on these public art policies, it's very much appreciated. I would say that just before I stop talking, I would say that I went to a really cool presentation in the city a little while ago, and it was a community. I'm going to have to go back to my notes, but it was a local government in Ontario, and they ended up turning Municipal Hall on its head by inviting artists to come in and work directly throughout the organization and apply, like, they basically were trying to do things totally differently and apply artistic and creative strategies to solve problems, and like it was really cool, and so that was starting to inspire us here as well.
Yeah. Meg, come and join us. Catherine,
I
I'd
just
love to
want-
get thoughts from the committee on some of the stuff.
I wanted to bring something up. So I'm the arts editor at Pekin Listeners, so I am, I guess, privy to a lot of on the record and off the record conversations about the state of the arts there. And I just want to put something in terms of knowledge your way, and in terms of knowledge from committee, which is that obviously it's the resort is well known for having some amazing festivals throughout the year. Really, a lot of them are built on the backs of some extraordinary people who have donated thousands of hours of volunteer time and charismatic people who pull in volunteers with them. There's more than one. I don't have to really
We have
point out
similar people.
We certainly do, but I'm hearing there, you know, that a few of them are, the bases and foundations beneath them are quite shaky. So I think that when policy like this is discussed, I think that that sort of supportive net, which is in this case at least financial, there should always be an acknowledgement that there's quite a risk there of large-scale projects and festivals and even very long-time ones falling flat. I mean, there are festivals there that are after 15, 20 years are still being run by the executive directors or volunteers, essentially. And these are things with national prominence. And I just wanted to state that now, and I may end up writing about it a bit, but I can't really go on record with some things yet. These are private conversations with people who trust me. And I just want us, as we build this, to be always aware of that, because I know that there will be wonderful things happening here built off the backs of volunteers. But to build it up as sort of an artistic business, like in the sense of a business plan, is just so that they have that support, so that they have a year one, year two, will help them to thrive. And that's kind of what I wanted to say. It's not very specific, it just really dropped into my head, but it's been something that's been growing to bug me while I do my job in Whistler. I would hate to see some of the things that happen there be lost because of that lack, because the people at the top have just completely burnt out.
It's an interesting idea to embed something like that in an OCP, and it might not be directly in the arts policy, but more in almost like a volunteer policy. I don't know, it's an interesting thought.
It's a conversation that maybe ought to happen so that when these things are developing at the Arts Council here, or anything because this community is going kaboom, right? It's growing so much, and things are going to happen, good things, and it's just might be very thoughtful for the district to have an awareness of that and have open conversations, because I see sometimes conversations in other places, not in Squamish, but being shut down or not being as open as they could be, and it troubles me. So,
Yeah,
because things get lost.
Yeah, there's a fine line. I mean, you look at the Testamentals, a good example, it was on the backs
Yes.
of people
Yeah.
for 20 plus years, and it was an amazing asset in the Menai community, and it got burned out for a lot of different reasons. And that's when you start to, your land use policies have to make sure they're supporting things like this too. And I mean, there's a whole complicated web that might go behind it.
And it's not just because these things are a nice idea and art is good for the soul. It's also because there is an economic thing in this, and profile and the district's visibility out there in the world. You know, that's something that's really good.
And a vitality that it offers to the community.
Yeah.
Meg, yeah, go ahead.
To go from the macro, and I totally get to the micro, I really wonder what can be done to support, buskers. What do they need in terms of venues to perform through the community? How can we really support people who are in the performing arts, not only the visual arts, because the performing arts, again, I think, not necessarily the Squamish Valley Music Festival, but the small groups, the bands, how can we facilitate and work so that we become known not only for recreation, but also as a community that, and Mayor Huntsman is a wonderful example of pick up that ukulele and just go for it.
I just bought myself an accordion.
Oh,
I don't know what came over me this weekend.
Affordable
I
housing.
don't know how you do the
My friends were all buying clothes and I went home with an accordion.
Spaces and that kind of thing as well. But I do think
it's
that
like always a
small
dream of mine.
micro-
Sorry. But I think that's and then there may be something, Sarah might not have brought those things because this is public art, which is visual, but I mean, I think that goes into sort of that conversation or how we articulate that to be able to support those things within the OCP, within the context of the OCP, so that every time we're doing something, we're going, oh, yeah, not just maybe a public art here, but maybe this is a great spot to have a little concert
Just
venue.
almost a corner kind of thing here
It
that,
also goes with the encouraging of developers, because most of those things are business-based things. Or at least I would like to see them as it, and they're slowly but surely coming. It comes with encouraging developers to allow it, and
Oh, the
of course
developers are
affordable
here.
housing for those artists.
It almost begs the question of a public arts committee, not that we are, but
Well, I think that's what the Arts Council is sort of
Is
trying to do and should
yeah.
be. And that, I think, I think I've had lots of conversations with Sydney about where is the delineation between this group and what we're doing, and we really are about artistic infrastructure in a sense, and the Arts Council is really about art promotion, connectivity, collaboration, networking, funding.
the only thing I will say is that if you actually design a little tiny square kind of thing here, then you provide a venue for some of the street performers to actually perform. So there is a crossover, I think,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there totally
between
is.
the needs.
It's just providing the space and the
And particularly in a neighborhood node context as well, and commercial nodes. And,
all buskers need is walk by traffic, right? If
Yeah.
you get, once you get a certain amount of walk by traffic and a big enough sidewalk, you are.
Yeah.
And a culture.
But
And a
it might be
culture.
really nice to be close to somewhere you can plug in, for example, or somewhere that's underneath the rain, you know, so just like design features within
Some
how
of that
you do your
came
built
in
environment.
The the branding action plan,
Exactly.
and I remember that was discussed in terms of trying to bring people into the downtown and really activate public spaces, and then they had a neat idea of like a busk stop. So it was, you know, like creating that invitation, as long as you know, make sure to check in with the businesses and stuff. So, and I think the municipality too started to frame up some busking guidelines. We didn't want to regulate it, but it was
Yeah.
just, you know, just some loose guidelines around busking so that there was clarity. And I don't know whether we've actioned that in the brand plan, but
It sits under my department.
okay, yeah. But yeah, so to your point, Mike, yeah, that kind of ties into performance and sort of creative spaces for expression.
It ties in a little bit about the crosswalk discussion I want to have below, and I sent something, I think, to Chris Wickham last week about in Montreal, they did these, they were just happened to be at bus stops, but they were calling them swinging bus, they were a swing set at bus stops, and each swing had a different musical tune or note that went with it, and in order to get the song, you had to have 3 people sort of coordinating. So there was sort of this sort of a psychological collaborative thing going on that you would actually, but taking creativity and putting them into our bus stops, putting them into our crosswalks, like creativity on all levels within how we put in infrastructure, I think is really important. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to see through some of these policies. I know there was one reference there, public infrastructure and other public, but you know, maybe at some point, or I don't know how this document's going to be laid out, but there's pictures, you know, examples are 4 or 5 examples.
And that might be something that this committee can help with too. So if you have imagery that you think might be appropriate, that would really hits the mark with some of these ideas and policy directions, then it would be great, because we don't have like a massive database, and I can go and find them, but it would be wonderful to be able to include local artists' work and examples in the public, like in the public realm, but also murals and all the rest.
Yeah,
We'll go out and take a bunch of photos too, but
yeah,
you're always welcome.
I thought that private sector development there was some policy that they had to provide a certain percentage.
Well, there's a community amenity contribution policy. It's in draft form right now, and we have basically a good chunk that's going to affordable housing, because that's really the great need of today, and then a certain percentage is going to just general amenities, and we haven't specified, and I think there's a certain amount to daycares, and we haven't specified exactly, and the money's just starting to roll in with that. Often the CACs come in as developments are phased, and sometimes they're all back-end loaded, and so you don't really see the bulk of it until the end of the development, which might be 2 or 3 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. But anyway, so that we do have a fund, and in theory, we could put that towards public art. I think we're also allocating public art through our budgeting process so that we can fund this committee and the work of this committee. But I think fundamentally, it shouldn't be seen as, from my point of view, putting public art into a development shouldn't be seen as a community amenity. It should be seen as part of the development, period. Community amenity is an add-on. In my opinion, having artistic expression within a development is purely good business sense. It's good built environment sense. It should be part of our fundamental policies. It's like, yeah, you're doing public art with that, you know? Yeah, you have to. CACs goes to something else. CACs might go to building an arts complex someday, or building a new sheet of ice or whatever, but CACs, in my mind, shouldn't go to public art on a private development. They should just be putting it there. And how we embed that through the OCP and then actually get that embedded into zoning bylaws is sort of the next step. And that's just my opinion. I think it's, you look at any development that's got public art in it, they're much more desirable places to live. People want to be in those spaces.
Are there mechanisms to do that?
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say that when the district was creating the public art policy and looking at different examples from other communities, some communities are very prescriptive in terms of highlighting that there's a certain percentage of the construction cost of the project that has to be allocated to artistic elements or public art within that project. The district at the time that we did the public art policy didn't create some kind of prescriptive percentage, and then recognizing that we would try and do that within this community amenity policy that we have. But because right now there's just so much focus around the affordable housing piece, we've had a few projects that have incorporated a contribution for public art that we've negotiated at rezoning and then set that out as an obligation in an agreement, a formal agreement with the developer. For example, like the Scott Crescent project, there was in the Upper Mount Cumberland Channel, when that is built, there's a $50,000 contribution that's set up that will be provided for that project. But
It's chump change.
yeah. So it's kind of hard because I think, on one hand, to the mayor's point, like we want to see that in all projects, but at the same time, we are still considering that an amenity and wanting to value that because it's an amenity in the sense of it provides. It's an amenity in the sense of what it provides to the community.
The way I think we should look at it from the context of a developer is, a developer has to build roads, right? Because people have to get from A to B. They have to build a sidewalk if it's applicable. They have to build public transportation. They have to build a sewer pipe so people can flush their toilets. They have to build public art so people actually enjoy the environment that they're living in. It's a piece of infrastructure, not an add-on, not a nice to have. It's a fundamental piece of the infrastructure, and it's a mindset change that communities have to go through to understand the value of that. You go to Soviet Russia in 1985, you'll understand. You go to St. Petersburg, which was built in the long time ago. It's a different environment than Warsaw in 1954.
The other thing right now, the district, I think, has a huge opportunity because everybody wants to build here. So now is the opportunity to actually change those policies.
And
We're not scrambling to get developers to come to the community anymore. So I really do think, I know there's lots of other priorities as well, but I think strike while the iron is hot.
So we do have some policy in our OCP that supports public art, and we have been using that to support in some upcoming capital works projects. We put in that special crosswalk, and we're able to put that in, and that was under their funding. They had to put a crosswalk anyways, and they added more to the cost to do that. As an example, there's also been examples where if a developer or a building's coming through and it's not meeting all of the development permit guidelines, we've used public art as a way to meet the development permit guidelines. So say they're proposing a kind of a very blank wall, we've said, instead of putting lots of other materials on there, would you consider public art and have that be a part of your be a part of your development permit application? That's been successful as well.
That's happening.
We don't have any procedures right now or like guidelines or to really require that, but we have been supporting that at kind of a staff level and a negotiation level. I think there could be more that could be strengthened with working with the SARA and this OCP and the policies that come out. I see here that, especially number 2, it does call out, in municipal capital projects. It does call out in another one, working with developers, and it's still that word of encouraging. So how can we better take that and then
Embed it.
and that's something that we can definitely consider when we're looking at those development permit guidelines. Especially, I'm just seeing downtown specifically, maybe we do want to have some language that's if downtown is our center.
Very clear and specific.
Yeah.
Funny little story. So our director of engineering, so everything comes to my desk, and we have a contract to do this, I have to sign it. So the contract to do the line painting came to my desk. And we had a little discussion in chambers about, well, I don't see any creative crosswalks, like, are we just doing zebra stripes crosswalks everywhere? Like, how do we incorporate this? And anyway, so it came to me and I looked it over, I said, Terry, my assistant, go tell Chris that I won't sign this because there's no creative crosswalks. And then, kind of jokingly, like, and Terry's like, oh, so she goes in there to tell Chris, very straight face, she did a great job, totally got him. Don't put this in there. Terry was the actress in this whole thing. Do you want to tell the story?
Sure. So, Mayor Heinzman sent me over with the contract. I plopped it on Chris's desk and I said, she refuses to sign this with a complete straight face. And Chris is rather new to the district, so he still doesn't know nuances,
So
my
earnest.
nuances or anything. So he looked up at me and he said, why? And I said, well, the creative crosswalks aren't in the document. Mayor wants it in here. And the look on his face was, are you kidding me? But he didn't say it. He didn't say it. And he said, okay, let's see what we can do about this. And,
At which point?
And then I burst into laughter because he was so genuine and he was so honestly concerned about the fact that the mayor refuses to sign the document. So I burst into laughter and he said, oh, shook his fist at me and brought it back to the mayor.
So now his nickname is Chris, Mr. Gullible. Anyway, just a little aside. Yes.
Just one more piece. I would love to see some of the developers or the district actually incorporate specific designated walls that are for graffiti art.
We have.
We have that already been discussed.
Yeah, in the OCP, but we actually have, about 4 years ago, council put a motion forward designating art walls in the community. I think there's 4 of them designated, maybe 6 of them, something like that.
That was it, yeah.
I haven't seen them.
One is on the way up to Valley Cliff on the. Like
I'm
it
not
was
sure if
underneath
anyone's
the
taken
bridge.
up.
Well, the one that Stan worked on underneath
Yep.
Centennial Way was
Yep.
one of the designated.
Yeah.
Those
that
aren't
became,
really
you know,
graffiti.
It's not really
though.
graffiti.
Those are
Yeah.
art
No,
projects.
those are art walls, yeah.
Those are art walls. I'm talking
Oh, no.
graffiti.
And there's a graffiti alley in Toronto
Yeah.
that Rick Mercer uses as his
Yes.
backdrop for his ramps.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
that's a cool
apparently it's
idea.
renewed
Yeah.
each year,
Yes.
so it's completely redone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just think of
Yeah.
graffiti as art, so I don't really
Yeah.
I
distinguish.
know, I don't know where the line is, but yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Because one of the things that gets me is there is some fabulous graffiti art
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
but the location of it, under the bridges, above the water, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh, what's the toxicity of the paint on that? That's actually because the river rises and falls. So why don't we regularize it? Have
Yeah.
designated, invite the kids through the.
So the trick there is private property owners, and we have to get their permission. But I think there are, through the BIA, we could probably find a couple that would be really open to it. I mean, we're just talking about what the district owns, which we don't own a ton. The private sector owns most of the walls in town.
No, I get that
Yeah.
too, but in fact, the highways owns the bridges, right?
Yeah.
And so one has to negotiate there too. But it's more the intention.
Yeah,
Does it
no.
make sense?
It's a good idea.
And even as a community amenity, rather than having some of those big white blank walls kind of thing,
I agree.
I mean, maybe there's some possibility.
There's I've long thought about this municipal building, and and there's an opportunity. We have, it's not the most attractive building, but even the idea of putting up paneling and then creating an invitation to use those. But I was also last summer the Hospice Society when they put up the plywood square in Stan Clark Park, and that had the chalk. That was the Before I Die, like that
Mhm.
cool installation, like Candy Chang does, street artist. Anyway, so that seemed to get a lot of traction. People were really engaged with that,
Yeah.
but it's a really neat idea.
Okay. I'm just cognizant of time. Do we have more to go through? Or?
No, that's, I just wanted to share those items, and that was my last slide. So maybe I'll just finish by saying we're getting close to releasing the discussion draft. There's going to be lots of holes in it, and it's a work in progress. So there's lots of opportunity to refine it and for the community to really chew on it and help us make it the best.
Is there like an intro to this, sort of talking about value of art in the built environment and to the community and.
Yeah,
There's a
we'll
whole-
have some opening paragraphs just around like setting the context for arts and culture and heritage. So I mentioned before, just picking up on some of the stuff that was coming out of the arts development plan for Squamish in terms of like why the arts are so important to sort of a whole and
From a societal point of view.
Yeah. I've left some cards here. If you have ideas or thoughts, please reach out to me. But also, I would love to come back to this table.
For sure,
Yeah.
anytime.
That'd be great.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Budget up.
Just one sec. Sarah, in one of your slides, you said there was a community event in April this year?
Yeah, it's not going to be April, it's going to be May, but
Oh, I see.
as soon as we release the discussion draft, council's going to get a little sneak peek at it first as well, and we have a community advisory group that is also looking at it, or we'll have a little look at it, and then we'll put it out to the community, we'll advertise the event, and we'll make sure that there's quite a bit of time for people to have a read of it for a few weeks before we host an event. So we'll do lots of advertising. So thanks.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. Moving on, budget update.
So I'll be brief. This is really just an opportunity to, very much like Sarah, the goal of talking to you about the budget today is to give you a status report, a little snapshot of where you stand, give you time over the next couple of months to digest and to really ponder the funds and the goals of the committee moving forward over the next couple of years. So no specific discussion or action is required coming out of this discussion today, but of course comments are always welcome. And so we'll take the opportunity later on in some other committee meetings to take a deep dive into your planning. So as you're aware, your annual budget is based on the calculation you see on the right-hand side. And so for the sake of this, we'll call it $50,000 moving forward for the term of the committee. This next slide really just, this is how your annual budget breaks down as decided by you guys. So of that $50,000, 25 major projects, 15 minor projects, 10 maintenance. And so the major projects portion is, its intent is, and you guys probably
To build
know all
up
this.
reserve.
Exactly,
So we
3-year
established that in
roll.
2016, didn't we? So that first 50,000, we put 25 away, spent 15 on minor projects, and still have 10 for maintenance, whatever. around there.
Correct, so
And
20.
they're guidelines, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. But in theory, 2018 is your year for thought to be put towards a major project or a major
And we, like, we'll at
investment.
that point have maybe 75 grand in there to
Correct.
be able to do something more significant.
Exactly. And so further to that, this is the here's kind of the current state of your operating budget. Oh, the reserve / provision. I'm not to be frank, I'm not totally clear depending on who you're talking to in our finance department. Versus some other things, if we call it reserve or if we call it provision, which I'll sort out in short order. But
We're putting in a bank account.
exactly. That's exactly it. And so you've got some carry forward from 2016, and so currently your reserve account is sitting at $44,000. And your 2017 operating budget remains the same. The following slide talks about what you've committed so far in 2017. So the Squamish Murals project, as an estimate, will come in at around $14,500. The hydro beautification project, $6,000, and so of the remaining 25 bucket that you guys have, there can be some discussion around what the remainder of that budget kind of looks like and goes towards. And so, and then moving forward to 2018, as Mayor alluded to, there's the major project portion sitting at around 75. And you'll see the second last line of the 19,000 year reserve. That obviously depends on how much you spend of the 4,500. Anyway, without all getting into the specific accountants of it.
And I think
Let's go back
there
to
was almost, I'm looking at the committee to help my recollection. We had sort of said 25 a year, put in the bank,
yeah,
build up, maybe do a big project every 3-4 years, depending on how big we want to go.
yeah,
And then put 10 aside every year for maintenance. Some years we might not spend that. Other years we might need $20,000 of it.
exactly.
So it's almost acts as a bit of a reserve bank account too.
Exactly, which is why you're sitting at 44
Or if we
right
go
now.
over budget on banners, for example, or
Exactly,
other projects within the minor project portfolio. Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense, everyone? Okay.
And so the only other thing I'll point out is these little starred asterisks, thank you, notes. So to access the reserve, it just needs to go through the budget process. And so for 2018, that will be where I'm looking for direction from you guys in late summer, early fall, in terms of looking at the 2018 budget, so that we can assign a plan to it and access those funds.
And just to clarify, there requires budget process approval from council. That's essentially a legislated, we have to put it in the capital, basically the capital or the actual operational capital
Correct.
budgets. It
Yeah,
has to be major art project, part of the capital plan coming out of this reserve. It ends up going through the budget process.
correct.
Everyone understand that?
That's also a really good consideration when you're thinking about maintenance. If we want maintenance right now, we might not be able to access that right now until the following year, or it might require
Yeah.
some budget thinking around that, so.
Yeah,
I think, this is where it drives me a little bit crazy, because maintenance type issues, you have to be able to react to them, or else they just get worse. And I mean, we have ongoing maintenance issues in every department, so why wouldn't we be able to do that efficiently? Because we're not talking about, well, we might be talking about, but you know what I mean? Like, there should be almost like,
More like
That's
larger
where-
projects, like you'll
Okay, if
still
it's
have
larger,
$10,000 to work with every year that way, right? But more for bigger projects, so thinking down the line of 2018 or in the future years, if you have big projects, then we have to plan ahead for that.
And you're agile enough within your
yearly budget.
yearly budget that you can interpret fund maintenance as required.
Just to bring up the mosaic again, I mean, the way it seems to be, the way this seems to be, the time seems to be steering is that I could see us going through another winter before any work gets done on it because of the planning and everything else. I'm just saying, because again, assessments need to be made and decisions need to be made about what to do about it. But we'll have to anticipate protecting it
Possibly through another winter season.
for another
yeah.
winter, and we don't know what sort of snow cover we're gonna get again.
Yeah, we don't.
Because it will take, especially if the decision is made to make repairs to it, it sounds to me like there's the potential to continue the community project aspect of it.
Mhm.
It's not a small piece of art, and it will take time.
Take months, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the extent of what I wanted to comment on with regards to the budget. So unless there's anything else, I think it follows nicely into. I'll skip right over to oh no. Sorry, I was going to suggest maybe talking about crosswalks, but I can do.
Do you want to do the BC Hydro beautification? Great.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll just also take this brief opportunity to update you guys on the BC Hydro beautification project. And so at last meeting, committee decided on the 6 locations, and where we've gone from there is I presenting to you today some proposed timelines. The funding cycle officially began on April 1st, and so what I'll propose to the committee today is that we review the competition in next meeting, and then we'll go shortly after that, May 15th, approximate. We'll open the competition June 15th, propose closing the competition, and then July, August, award and go into production September, October, then install. One of the conditions of the funding from BC Hydro is that we start the project and complete it within the 12-month timeframe, which
So-
I don't perceive being a problem.
Yeah, I mean, this is wrapping, so the installation shouldn't, I think, once it's awarded, it should be a matter of a couple of weeks. Artwork and installation. It's not like someone has to go paint or make something. So hopefully we can get it done in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working in a little bit of wiggle room there in case the specific artist wants to transpose, or depending on how that process looks, to a specific artist.
Okay. Everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
What's that?
These are 6-inch months.
Exactly.
And that
And that one,
that was just
that was great. That went up the next day. That was great.
yeah. I just
Thank you
wanted to
for
show
that.
the committee that I don't have any further updates beyond the conversations that
Okay.
have already happened.
Maybe I'll just quickly do the crosswalk one. Hopefully we do this in both of these last two things in 10 minutes and we can go in camera. So anyways, I sort of relayed that story. And you see creative, thank you for doing this by the way, you see creative crosswalks all over the place. We spend X amount of money putting white on black asphalt anyway. And you can see there's a lot of really creative ways to do white on black. So could be the same type of paint. Like I don't necessarily think this has to be a huge expense. The two crosswalks we did downtown, of course, were very expensive. They were $8,000 a crosswalk for the rainbows, and then I think it was almost 85 or 9 for the big, I can't remember. Anyway, about $8,000 each. So we don't necessarily have to do that, but just to do our zebra stripes, which we repaint every 2 years or so anyway, why not make them creative? And so I just wanted to bring it to the committee in terms of, do we go and find 5 different templates we really like? Operations wants to have something simple that they can just go and do. Do we want to go out and do a competition and just get 5 designs, and then 4 designs, 3 designs, or something, and then we can just say, here's the template. It might cost a little bit more in operations, and we'll figure out how to budget and fund that. But is this something that the committee's interested in doing? I always think of roads as this huge canvas that's streaking our town. Yes, Meg?
I think of piano keys going across over on 2nd Avenue where, Sam is kind of thing.
Exactly that kind of thing.
It would be so much fun, and it wouldn't be making sound, unfortunately, which
Yeah.
is doable in subway stations in
Stairs and stuff.
Sweden or whatever.
Yeah.
But it would still provide an opportunity to say arts.
Yeah. And maybe there's a real good opportunity to help with that extra budget that might cost to partner with some of the companies with the BIA and that type of thing, if it's in the downtown.
Bunch of chickens.
Chicken picking?
I love the rain one just because it's so squamish. It's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
My question would be on the number. I don't know if we need 5 or, because that seems like a lot. I don't know if we have that many crosswalks. I haven't counted.
we have a lot of crosswalks.
You want to know for it, like interspersed where they're kind of exciting, if we get too many, we'll kind of reach
It would just be
I just threw the number. It could be 3 different designs, could be 2, could be just 1 to start off with.
I think it'd be neat to throw, I think you get some amazing ideas even from like the public school children, and it'd be neat to throw it out like that.
The Safer is to School, actually, the kids' crosswalks.
We have talked about that, yeah. Sorry, go on.
Are those art pieces for those crosswalks?
No, but we have through the HASTE program at some of the things talked about crosswalks. Well, I say talked about, me talking, so I hope someone was listening, but we talked about, and then getting the students to actually go out and paint them, you know, and be part of that. And we talked about it at Valley Cliff Elementary School. I think that's great to get the kids involved, and especially in the design.
Yeah, the design, and I really think it's important, not that you have it an inch thick throughout the entire community, but that you have it to reflect the individual communities if you start to do that. So that there's almost a sense that this is what this community is about, sort of like the rainbow flags kind of thing.
And the one going over to the Eagle Watch area having salmon or whatever.
One of the considerations is this is being brought up for this year's painting, so there is quite a short timeline. So maybe I think there could be some discussion around future integration, but I think what are some solutions for the interim that we could do right now?
That fit within the budget.
Well, I mean, we have a little extra budget here. It could be we say, you know, it's going to cost. I think these crosswalks normally cost about $800 to paint.
Correct.
Yeah, and so if it's a matter of setting up a different template and it costs another $800 per, maybe we can do I'm just, you know, I think we have a little bit of budget, maybe.
But
Or
how's
if there's
that-
a business that wants to say, hey, we want one here, we'll add the extra $800 to do the piano key across, or something like that, yeah.
So speaking to the urgency, how does that work if there's an existing crosswalk that needs to be repainted, but you can still see part of it? Does it have to be the whole thing has to
So
be?
how our capital works work is they repaint it every year. So some of the costs that you see for the rainbow crosswalk and the other one downtown, they're thermal, and it's designed to last for 10 years, and so they're not redoing it every year. I'm unsure if we can put design, like I think there's simple designs that maybe this committee agrees to pay for the design of a different type of crosswalk. I'm not sure how that process works, like if it's a template zebra crossing that they put through, but it would last for, the paint's intended to last for a year. And that's it, and it's actually cheaper to do it that way than to do the thermal everywhere in the district. So that's why we have set aside money to do this. We're just unsure, you're not sure about the cost of the actual template.
Yes, Rhodes has made it very clear that within their budget, you know, they exist.
I just signed the
as
contract, I know.
Exactly.
Not in there. Yeah, so we'd have to find a little extra, but, so maybe we just say, let's see if we can maybe come up with 2 designs, just within the black and white for this year, so we're not necessarily buying 18 different colors of paint. But maybe there's a process out there that we want to set up whereby if a local business or something wants to redo a crosswalk, we have a mechanism that allows them to fund a crosswalk for $1,000 or whatever and Adrian, what do you think from downtown BAA point of view?
I think it's very possible. I think that we would probably have a couple of cross bidders on a couple of the crosswalks around, and then it would be kind of fun.
It'd be really fun.
We also get a discount because we do it all in bulk, all at once. So the cost might not be reflective if it's just a one-off at a different time. So just take note.
I mean, to be honest, I think, and I know this is where ops starts to panic when the mayor starts talking like this, but there are community groups and volunteers and people would love to go out. And you look up there, you've got a community group painting a crosswalk. And they do it in other communities. We can figure out a way to do it here. Council actually put forward a motion a couple of years ago to allow this to happen. And it got too complicated with ops that the community group just bailed on the whole thing. So there's an attitude thing that needs to take a bit of a shift, I think. I'm being very direct. I should forget that the cameras are on. Kelsey's going, you idiot. Anyway, so, I mean, I think there's some opportunities there. So I'm just wondering, looking for guidance from the committee. Adrian, do you want to bring this back to the BIA and just, and see if, and then maybe, I don't know if we come up with a system whereby if the BIA wants to put in 3 crosswalks, we can figure out how to support it through some funding and or facilitate it through some ability for volunteers to actually do it.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't you pilot one, you know, and say, okay, this is a template, does it work, doesn't work, you know, and then go on, and then you can build from them. I mean, it would be nice to instantly have 3, or choose 2,
Yep.
you know, but
Well, I mean,
try and set an example.
I just always think of the pilot as just the first one.
If it's gonna be sponsored by an individual business, and the individual business is gonna want some say in it.
Yeah.
If it's sponsored by the BIA in general, then the BIA in general is gonna want to, you know, have at least some of the say in the way.
Then you can have a bidding between one of the schools and the BIA to see who gets the first opportunity to have the crosswalk.
I always like to pit children against other people.
Parents.
And I think we set some parameters, like there's no advertising, there's no,
Yeah.
you know, if there's a word, it's maybe in this committee has a bit of a role
So not
to
like
make
Rogers
sure.
Arena.
Yeah,
The Zephyr Crosswalk.
yeah. I always wanted to, we
I
always,
did it that
The
far.
wind.
this group that was doing this downtown initiative a couple years ago, they were calling themselves Imagine Squamish, and they wanted to just do between Scotiabank and Annis Attic, the first few notes to John Lennon's Imagine, and just like as if it's the, you know, the treble clef and the
Yeah.
and got killed in the
Copyright.
bureaucracy.
Oh, really? Didn't have
Got killed.
copyright?
No, we didn't even get that far. It got killed with our internal processes at the municipal.
Murdered
But even though it didn't succeed then, maybe things are shifting and changing,
That's-
so
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea. And I love that location too,
yeah.
in that
That is-
mid of
that
the
is-
mid crosswalk.
That would be the biggest
Yeah.
by far.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
our-
Carrie,
our
I can
cap-
see the gerbils are turning.
Our capital works budget, they work fast. So this is, and sometimes we wanna have this chance to talk about the art and have these opportunities. So how I'm seeing this connection is that we might need an answer within the next month from BIA to say, we are for sure going to look at something for this crosswalk, don't paint it over, we got this.
Mhm.
And if we don't get that, then I think the Capital Works team would like to obviously
Yeah, just
do that
go,
line
yeah.
painting then. And I think they'd be open to the direction to say, okay, leave it. If we want to talk about schools specifically and we want to get creative with a different template, I think this is something that this committee can agree to or discuss today about. And maybe there's some quick template ideas that we're just going to trial out for the
Yeah.
year around all the school zones.
Yeah.
And we can see what that template costs and how much that works. And then maybe I know we've done this in the past, but had a subcommittee that staff can connect back into to make a decision or not to use some of that funding.
I'm wondering, we're doing the Mayor for the Day competition right now, and instead of we've basically said, you have to do something creative. If you're doing writing, it has to be in a poem format. We want pictures, we want videos, we want photographs, I'm wondering if we could just add a layer in there, Terry. Basically saying, and we want your ideas for crosswalk to put in front of your school. Can we do that?
Awesome.
We already got the communications going out. And maybe we set a few parameters, like it has to be black and white. Simpler designs are better. Can't be
Something
too-
repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The overall size.
Yeah.
Like I'm just kind of envisioning kids walking, kind of
a mirrored image of kids walking and, you know,
So you're already designing something in your head?
I am.
Yeah, I think we all are, that's good, I like that.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just incorporate that, and then we can just keep it so that maybe there's crosswalk in front of each school that we do independently of this whole system. And we don't zebra every crosswalk. There's some crosswalks that have cement and brick along the sides, and we don't necessarily put zebras across those. So, for example, the one in front of Scotiabank isn't zebraed, but we could paint it. Okay, so, and maybe, you know, maybe even if we come up with a simple design just to do something different than zebras on a couple of them, or maybe we'll even just leave it up to you guys.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some of these designs that I'm showing, I wonder if they're available for purchase.
Yeah.
And that
Kind of love the rain one.
right, and then it's as simple as the committee deciding
Yeah.
quite quickly in terms of that being a direction and providing that to ops and
Mhm.
being done. I see that. I see that supporting ops well for this year with the short turnaround, but
Yeah.
I welcome their input on
Does
that,
that
given
mean
what
there
I'm
might be
hearing.
Oh, it could be that, yeah, it could be there's a copyright on, yeah, maybe, can you do just a little digging, see if there's
Yeah.
crosswalk designs copyright, and
Ex-
easy to figure out if we can buy it?
Exactly.
Creative Commons crosswalk.
And then just maybe start this year with just getting a couple of those out there,
Show.
and maybe work with the schools to do some more independent ones that aren't part of the whole. Might be worthwhile talking with ops and just saying, this crosswalk near Valley Cliff School, this crosswalk near Squamish Elementary, this crosswalk near Brackenville, and just keep them aside for a little bit. And, okay. Yeah.
Just one suggestion, your mayor for a day, if part of that, like I don't know how it's structured, was that the kid who was ever the mayor has to go and talk to some of the people in the school as well, to say, this is the idea that's being floated out. So it's a way of getting some feedback and some understanding of what the role of the mayor is about. It's not just you deciding that, but it's also talking to your community kind of thing as well.
Yeah,
So they might have some ideas about crosswalks and stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
I have an idea based on something Laurel did.
Okay, cool. We gotta, okay, well, if you have a good idea, like at this point, I don't think we necessarily want to adjudicate or anything. If you just have a good idea that you want to see out there, send it to staff. And
Yeah, I'll tell you.
okay, we gotta move on because
So
we got work to do.
You're absolutely right, Mayor. I just need some clarification from the committee in terms of the remaining budget of the roughly 4,500 in your 2017 operating that you'd like to.
Let's just keep it there for now, and we don't have to decide to spend it today.
Okay.
Yeah, and we may go to some of these crosswalks. It may go to the mural festival this summer. It may go to something else.
So, but if we were to, because my concern is that Capital Works would like an answer before the next committee meeting, so
On,
on whether or not we'll be having,
On what our contribution is
oh,
to support them in artistic crosswalks, because if there's no money to fund artistic crosswalks, then they're all zebras. Is that too blunt?
But
No,
we need to know the process of
I shouldn't have signed that thing last
how
time.
you're gonna.
Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, don't you need to know the process, what is involved in the process for the templates first? Isn't
And what the
that kind of
cost is.
Yeah,
Isn't-
it's- yeah,
Before we,
it's-
so it's kind of we're stuck now. So-
Do you
I
do you
will-
want the
I
committee
will
to basically,
absolutely.
we could say allocate up to $2,000 to this, and then you may come back and go, yeah, wasn't enough, we can do it this year.
Or that's enough to do
Or
one crosswalk.
we did 2 crosswalks.
Yeah.
Or we do a non-zebraed crosswalk and we do it at a different time,
Yeah,
right?
My hesitation right now is that I think that's a great, I think that's a great start for me as staff. And that this is all very exciting for the committee. I just want to make sure that that with the remaining unassigned dollars and us only being in the beginning of April, those dollars being assigned to maintenance, that we're not anticipating something further on.
well, I mean, some of those maintenance dollars may end up going to the mosaic. Yeah. we won't know that.
Yeah, and so then, absolutely.
And I don't know of any other major, I mean, this is something we have to start doing, is doing a bit of a yearly or bi-yearly, go through our, and, you know, get all of our, we need to get all of our public art on a database, we have some of it, and go through and go, oh yeah, this one's good, oh, this one needs a bit of a paint job, oh, this one really is broken, this one needs to be fixed, and so actually start to inventory that a bit.
Yes. It was on my list.
Yeah.
And most public art projects take more than a year to be installed
Yeah, especially if they're big, yeah, through the whole process.
through the whole process. So I don't feel like we're gonna have, you know, we might start planning something for next year or start planning things for, but I don't think we're gonna be, so. I don't know, forward.
So, what I'm hearing is that, the committee might be comfortable with me, looking into rights for purchase, thank you. Crosswalks and talking to ops and roughly $2,000, and I can come back.
I just threw $2,000 out there just to make sure you had something to,
yeah.
but it might not, to start, it's,
Yeah,
And the last piece, just if Adrian, if you could maybe, there's a BIA meeting between that month, or?
Yes, but it's a AGM.
Okay.
Is the only issue with that.
So it might not
I
be-
will, yeah, and then we're gonna, I'll email them this week and we'll see what the response looks like.
Okay.
But our AGM is next week.
Yeah.
Week after.
But
I just
maybe
like
there's-
the hopscotch one, like I just looked at one, it's just having us hopscotch instead of,
I don't want too many kids hopscotching.
oh, come on. Hopscotch by the schools. Okay, let's move on to the mural project for 3 minutes, and then we've gotta get our tokens in here.
that 2004 motion?
Sure, do you want a motion?
I don't think I need a motion.
Yeah, you
Um,
probably do if we're spending money.
Not
Is,
for public.
does the committee want to put forward that staff, we allocate up to $2,000 on creative sidewalks to facilitate the line painting budget if necessary?
Got that, Terry?
Sounds good?
Gotta start somewhere.
Moved by Toby, second by Adrian. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Murals. We got like a minute and a half. Just kidding.
This is the fun part.
I know, but we do have to do a motion to close once we start actually deliberating on the
Yes.
individual.
So I just have one quick one overview, and then we can close the meeting. So this was the Squamish Murals project. We received 10 applications from 6 separate artists. We received 5 applications for the library, 4 applications for Brennan Park, and 1 application for the PVR station. And we didn't receive any applications for the loggers and finch, those utility boxes there. So maybe it's something to revisit in future projects. We have what we asked the applicants to submit on was 11 by 17 to give us electronic versions and printed versions. And we wanted to have them give us a brief rationale, very quick, of the design as it pertains to the location and preferred theme. We also asked for a budget, so one short paragraph detailing the budget rationale, addressing, we had 3 separate budget criteria and materials, so they had to outline that. And then to give us a little bit of an example of their past work that they've done and experience. So what I've done today and what we'll present in the closed agenda is I'll be presenting on all 3 of those points. I'll show a visual, I'll give you the budget, I'll give you a very brief rationale, and then afterwards we can, as a group, I'll put them around the table and you can take a little bit more time to look at these applications further. All the applications are anonymous, so there's no names attached to them, and there's packages for each of them that we can have around the table.
Thanks very much.
And
Thanks. Okay. So we can go in camera?
we can go.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. There are no status recommendations to and from council.
So are we ending the?
We are gonna end the open, I just wanna see, is there any very, very quickly roundtable stuff? Yeah, Toby.
There's a couple of things. One is, today I had a discussion with Jeff Cook, the SORCA president, about a project that they're looking at doing. They actually applied to the Scottish Arts Council for one of their grants, but didn't receive any money, and it's to create artistic signage at 5 to 10 of their major trailheads. And it would be procuring artists to come up with art, like paintings or drawings of prominent features on the trails, and then that would be replicated on signage digitally. But it could include sculpture features as well if there's artists that would want to be part of that. So they are looking for funding, and my question is, would this be considered a public art project, or does it have to be on municipal land? Because I know many of the trails aren't.
I don't think it technically has to be on municipal land. I mean, if SORC is doing it, the money's
Well,
going through
they don't
SORC.
have, they tried to get some money to do it with coming up with this project, so they're not necessarily doing it unless they get some funding. I mean, they're going to Squamish Tourism as well, so, or Tourism Squamish as well, so.
In theory, they could make an application to us, to the committee, if they wanted to. I mean,
That's what the Squamish Arts Council recommended.
yeah, well, we don't have any money this year, so it wouldn't happen this year. I look at it and I think, how much budget are they talking about?
Well, they had budgeted $1,700 per sign, which would include the artists doing the artwork, and then the sign being.
We certainly would not be funding the signs through this committee.
Yeah, I don't remember the
We
signs.
could, in theory, help run a art competition for the design of them, in theory, but that would just be that.
Maybe
part.
that was the net.
Yeah, the signs weren't in the original proposal, it was just sculpture installations.
Mhm.
Well, we don't have any money this year, so.
Yeah, okay. My second item
Yep.
was, the Squamish Arts Council has received a grant from the BC Arts Council to do a whole bunch of youth programs, summer arts camps again, and one of them is proposed to be a public art mural.
Cool.
And so it would involve several ages of kids getting together and coming up with a design and then painting some public art space. And it was suggested by Sydney and I, because we had a discussion about it, that maybe do the watershed, beside the watershed.
Oh, yeah,
Along the dike,
that's a great spot.
yeah. The only concern I have about that is that, so that is public, I mean, that is.
Arts are,
It is
all that
municipal.
infrastructure, yeah.
And so, in reviewing it the other day, I saw that it's kind of precarious in some ways.
You mean you don't want children
That's-
falling into the big, huge water?
I mean, there is a railing there, but kids could, it's not a,
Well, it could be that if
it's
they're
not
there,
a
we'd have
code
to.
railing.
We have a lot of support from operations to be doing some of the public art, and maybe there's a way in which they can, if we're aware that you want to use it with children,
Right.
that they can arrange to make it a safer place,
I mean,
environment for
it's
them.
a great space in that you could have, because there's kind of four sides of it, and the concrete in that, and you could have, younger kids being on the lower parts and other kids higher and stuff like that. And it's very public. There's a lot of traffic along there. And so I just wasn't sure if we could just kind of use the application to take that spot and.
Yeah, I think, can't see why not.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I just need to go through this evening, we'll go through the process of.
Yeah.
And then it will come to this committee
Yeah.
and the committee can review it and approve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the project is a go, for sure.
Yep.
It's being put into
I
the
think sounds
Granite
great.
Park guide. It's just the location is to be determined.
I think
right?
it, very
So-
similar to the alternative school coming to us and doing their
Yeah.
presentation on that, be a similar type
Yeah,
process.
yeah, okay. And the other thing is, it's a quick thing, the Foyer Gallery tried to get some money to do a Canada 150 two-week special exhibit, and I haven't been able to get any funding from anywhere, so I was just hoping that someone might have some ideas on where I might be able to get, we're just looking for $900 and it will go through, but if not, then it's gotta be canceled because there's just no, I mean, we've got in-kind stuff already included, so, I don't know.
There's gotta be someone in town who will give you $900. A developer, a business, it's gotta
Yeah.
be.
Maybe
Yeah.
getting in touch with our communications team
Yeah.
or some way in which.
Just to get it out there.
Okay,
Maybe story the chief?
yeah, that's a good idea, yeah, that's a great idea. It's more work for me, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe you'll get
Yeah.
more money out of it.
Yes, maybe.
Go for it.
An article in the
Okay, yeah.
Chief is a phone call and 10 minutes talking.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
You don't have to write it.
Good idea, good
Yeah, you
idea.
don't have to write.
I mean, I already spent weeks writing the grant, but
Yeah.
application, so, anyway, okay.
So anybody else? I'm not gonna, a motion to close, moved by Catherine, seconded by Doug, all those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Okay,